Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Nashville Native. I'm your host, like always, Justin Hawkins. So you know what we do here. We cover all things Nashville sports. Titans, Predators, Nashville SC, you name it. Nashville SC is getting back to action, so we will be heating up that talk coming soon. They got some friendlies going on. They played Louisville FC the other night, and they tied there. But you know, we talk all things Nashville sports. So you want to come get that content you can get on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. Follow along, subscribe, do what you got to do to get that content. I'm here for it. So there's a lot of things that's been going on, not necessarily Titans world, but you got the Super Bowl coming up. We'll get into that, the matchup there. We had the AFC and NFC Championship games on Sunday. Big stories there. There's somebody retiring. Are they going to stay retired? We'll see. You know, that wasn't the case in the past. You got a little bit of the Predators news. Like I said, Nashville SC started playing. So there's things to get into. So let's start with non-Titans things, because you know what? We cover too much of Nashville sports sometimes when we get started with the Titans. So we're going to start out of market today, and we are going to start with the Super Bowl and the AFC and NFC Championship games. All right, so it was Kansas City versus Cincinnati Sunday night, San Francisco and Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon. So we'll get started with the NFC and San Francisco. Now, what a story this has been. It has been 8 straight games of Brock Purdy's success. Entered the game week 13 against Miami after Jimmy Garoppolo went down and really didn't look back. The rookie quarterback has been stellar. Threw at least a touchdown pass in every game that he played in until the NFC divisional round against Dallas. Dallas played a very good game against San Francisco last week, but it was not enough as they went on to the NFC Championship game. But Brock Purdy has seen so much success. He looks stellar. Now look, he was the Mr. Irrelevant 7th round draft pick. 256 is what I think the number is. The guy played out of his mind. Now, with all that being said, they did not win against the NFC Championship game. So if you did not see that, it was a relatively less than stellar game, but that's really been the case for Philadelphia all season. The Titans even saw that on the forefront when they got smacked in the mouth. I believe that was also week 13. Something like that. I don't fully remember when that game was on the top of my head, but it was week 12, week 13. No, actually, I think it was week 10. So, look, a lot of things have been going on with that. You know, Brock Purdy in the first half went down. He got hit in the arm when throwing it, ended up tearing his UCL. He will have to have surgery. He is now out for 6 months after surgery. So he's due right around training camp, maybe missing week 1 or so. So there's a lot of news with that. And he goes out. San Francisco has to use their 4th quarterback in the season. They started with Trey Lance, out week 2. Then they went to Jimmy Garoppolo, out week 13. Now they went with Brock Purdy, out in the NFC Championship game when it mattered most. All that success down the drain went to, I think he's a 10-year quarterback, backup quarterback, Josh Johnson. And he's been all around the league. I think this was his 2nd or 3rd destination or time with San Francisco. He came in, played fairly manageable, but when a guy comes in and he throws his first completed pass in an NFL playoff game, what kind of success do you think that's going to happen? Now, the other story is, like I said, on the other side of the ball, Philadelphia played out of their mind. I mean, they're a well-balanced team. I think the NFC had the 2 best teams in the NFC playing in the NFC Championship game, the 2 most well-balanced teams. Both teams have good defenses. Both teams can run the ball. Both teams can pass the ball. And I think when it came down to it, one quarterback stayed in the game, one quarterback didn't. And I think that was basically the reason why San Francisco lost. You know, they had success with Brock Purdy, and then you take him out of the game, and the hope starts to deflate. Now, the other thing is, while San Francisco may not have played up to their standard, and while Philadelphia may have exceeded standards or at least played well enough to blow them out, I do think that the NFL playoff referees have had too much of their hand in these games. Not just the NFC, though. We saw it Sunday night against Kansas City in the Cincinnati game as well, and we'll get in that in just a moment. But it seems like once Brock Purdy, now this is where everybody's got those NFL's conspiracy theories of, the NFL is rigged and this and that, and, the refs got paid off, or, they got these deals, or they gamble and they want games to play out a certain way. They have storylines they want to follow, and they want those storylines to come to fruition. So, such as Brock Purdy is supposed to win these football games and go to the Super Bowl because why not? That's what a storyline that would be of a rookie, Mr. Irrelevant, first time in NFL history a rookie has taken his team to the Super Bowl. Now look, he got hurt. Maybe the storyline changed. That's what people on Twitter are saying all about. Look, I follow most everything sports on Twitter. It doesn't matter who it is. Most everything on sports, I follow it. I like things, and you can get that kind of content from my Twitter page as well as I like or retweet or things like that. But there's a lot of conspiracy theories that once Brock Purdy left the game, Josh Johnson came in, the refs were going to do anything they could to get Philadelphia to win that game because, you know what, why not? The story is over. Let's go the other route. Now, in my opinion, did San Francisco play well enough to win that game? No. But they also had Josh Johnson, their quarterback, who is not very good. But the defense didn't play up to their standards. The rest of the offense didn't play up to their standards. They had to run the ball more. They're very efficient running the ball. They have one of the best offensive line in the league. But also so does Philadelphia has one of the better defensive fronts in the league as well. As that was evidence, they got pressure all over the place, and which helped lead to Purdy's injury. But that being said, there were a lot of penalties in this game. There were false starts, a lot of things, holdings, defensive holdings, and offensive holdings. A lot of things that are sort of uncharacteristic for the 49ers were happening in this game. And it led a lot of frustration and concerns and confusion across the league, fans, you name it. Even media coverage, for professional media coverage, were questioning some of these calls and wondering what is going on. Why are these calls being or especially in a playoff game when they're supposed to let things go, or this is playoff mentality, or this is physical playoff games, and they're just not letting it happen. Now look, the referees did put their hand too much in there, but there was also things that San Francisco's not doing. Also there was a fight. Trent Williams basically manhandled a guy and threw him down. So stuff like that is the game did not go San Francisco's way. Doesn't matter what penalties were there. Doesn't matter, Brock Purdy or not. San Francisco just did not play a very good game. And I think they had their bad game at the wrong time. And, of course, like I said, it is very unfortunate Brock Purdy went out. But even before that, they weren't even putting much offense together. And, Philadelphia has just not had to. I think, they beat, what did they beat the Giants? 38-7, and they won 31-7 last week against the Niners. And, Philadelphia's playing very well. But if you look at the stats, 38-7 win against the Giants. Here's Jalen Hurts' number. 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay? But they can run the ball. What's their running stats? This is where they had 268 rushing yards against the Giants. That's very impressive. They have 3 rushing touchdowns against the Giants. They had 2 receiving touchdowns by Jalen Hurts. One Devontae Smith and one Dallas Goedert in that game. But no 100-yard receiver against the Giants. Like I said, only 154 yards passing. And then you go to last week's game against the 49ers. Again, Jalen Hurts only threw for barely over 100 yards. 121 yards. No touchdowns this time. But here's where it comes back to the rushing yards. Okay, they're so well balanced, and they just don't have to do a lot, right? 48. The highest rushing yards they did was 48, but they had 3 at 40 yards. Okay, they had 148 yards total for the team, but they had 3 total touchdowns. Miles Sanders had 2, Jalen Hurts had 1. And, if you look across the board against San Francisco, they didn't even get over 100 yards passing. Okay, like I said, Brock Purdy didn't last very long. 4 completions, 4 attempts, 23 yards. Josh Johnson, 74 yards passing. Okay, total of 83. And then you had Christian McCaffrey, who's one of the better running backs in the league without a doubt. He's a dual threat, can run the ball, can catch the ball. He had 84 yards and a touchdown. That's prime Christian McCaffrey. Okay, 4 catches, 22 yards as well. But they couldn't get anything going. Now, they didn't have turnovers as far as interceptions go, which is, Brock Purdy's had several. It was the fumbles that really got them. They had 3 fumbles. Okay, one of the fumbles was Brock Purdy's hit that his arm went forward. But if you think about it, these calls, this is where the refs, the judgmental calls are getting very subjective instead of objective, I believe. You look back into Week 18, Josh Dobbs with the Titans. Did his arm go forward? You really slow down the video. Did his arm go forward? And yes, in my opinion, I think it did. Okay. Then I think you had an instance with Patrick Mahomes in this playoffs. I think last week against the Jaguars. Did his arm go forward? Yes, they said it did. Okay. Last week, same instance, Brock Purdy, did his arm go forward? If you slow it down just enough, I believe his arm slowly, just barely, goes forward. But they ruled it a fumble. Now, what's very interesting about the Josh Dobbs things, not to rehash, but we're going to rehash it, is how fast they reviewed that or did not review that. As soon as it happened, they said, yep, it's a touchdown. And pretty much that was the writing on the wall for the Titans. But Brock Purdy had his fumble, 3 total fumbles for the team. Deebo Samuel and Josh Johnson also had one. And that was the thing. Put the Eagles in good field position to get field goals, to get touchdowns. And that was a story. That was just the story. And, unfortunately, the 49ers could not overcome that. The story had to end. Brock Purdy goes down. The 49ers go down. And we have a Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Now on the other side, in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now that was an interesting game. That was much closer. Ended up being 23-20. Usually when you have high-profile quarterbacks such as Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a gun show. It's going to be first one to 30 points. The first one to score over 30 points or whatever. This game, 2 interceptions by Joe Burrow, a fumble by Patrick Mahomes. And that game really came down to the wire, and rightfully so. Like I said, one of the most interesting teams, 2 high-profile quarterbacks, and a lot went into that game. Like I said, Joe Burrow threw 2 interceptions. I don't think the second one was necessarily his fault, but he was forcing too much, and I think it got a little carried away from him. The offensive line was not doing very good. They couldn't block very well as he was getting sacked. I think. Let's see, I'm going to check to see how many times. But, so here you go. He was sacked 5 times. Okay, if you remember back to last year's playoff game against the Titans, Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times. But he ended up overcoming that, obviously, because of Ryan Tannehill. But we're not going to get into that. But, look. Joe Burrow, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Yes, he did have the fumble, but look, 326 yards through 2 touchdowns were to Joe Burrow's 1 touchdown. I think that was the difference. Is Patrick Mahomes is just doing enough for his team. Doesn't matter what receivers he has. Doesn't matter if Travis Kelce is there, Tyreek Hill there or not there, Juju Smith-Schuster. He's getting the ball to his guys. Here, if you think about Tom Brady in his entire career with the New England Patriots, what did he do? He had a revolving door with receivers. Julian Edelman. He had, Danny Amendola. He had Wes Welker. I think he had Wes Welker. But he had a revolving door of a lot of nobodies that he made into somebodies. Chris Hogan was one of them, and several years ago. It was nothing outside of New England, but was something with them, and that was attributed to Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady's best receiver that he ever had was Randy Moss. So, look, Patrick Mahomes is becoming that dude of, I don't need all these elite receivers. I just need people to catch the ball. I will throw them open. Give me fast receivers like a Sky Moore, or like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or Juju, who's a good after-the-catch guy, or Isaiah Pacheco, their running back, that is becoming a do-everything kind of type of back. And, so I think that played out as 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, right? Travis Kelce becoming one of the most elite tight ends that the NFL has seen. He is clearly making his statement for a Hall of Fame berth or showing or whatever. There was a stat on Sunday, I think, with his touchdown, he's second in receiving touchdowns, not tight end touchdowns in the playoffs, receiving touchdowns in the playoffs. He is second. I can't remember exactly how many he has. I think it's close to 20. And the only person ahead of him is Jerry Rice. Now, Jerry Rice is, without a doubt, the GOAT of receivers, and it will probably stay that way regardless of what happens. Nobody can touch those records. But Kansas City played a really good game. I even thought the Bengals played a really good game. But here's the thing, too. I mentioned the refs with the Chargers. The 49ers in the Eagles game. The refs made their statement in this game as well. There's examples that I can touch on that clearly would make you question what these referees are thinking. Like, it was the second half. The last or second to last drive for the Bengals, trying to get points on the board. They're pretty much stuck at their own end zone. Joe Burrow makes a pass, and then I believe it was Frank Clark who hit him about 3 seconds late. Now, it wasn't an egregious hit, but these days, referees don't care if it's egregious or not. If you hit the quarterback late, you make him fall down, it's a flag. Okay, that's what happened. Was there a flag? There was no flag. Okay? And then you got the whole 3rd and 9 situation with the Kansas City Chiefs that really honestly just makes no sense. Okay? So if you started, it was 3rd and 9. I think it was the second half. It was a crucial point in the game. And it was 3rd and 9. They were near midfield. And before the play went off, the referee stopped the play saying that need to put 10 seconds back on the play clock, okay, and then start on his whistle. So then they run the play. They did not get the first down, so it was going to go to 4th down. Here comes the punt unit. And then what happened? The referees had a discussion and say basically that, the clock messed up, they didn't start it right, this or that. So then they replayed the 3rd down, saying that it was going to start on their whistle. And then what happened? They still did not get the first down. But it doesn't matter. There was a defensive holding on Eli Apple. Now, that cornerback, he's not very good, but he makes a name for himself of being so bad, but also he makes a lot of trash talking. But at the same time, though, that was legit defensive holding as he did against Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It caused a first down. But why in the world was it stopped in the first place? That's what makes the least amount of sense. It doesn't make any sense if you think about it. Okay, the play clock was going down. They didn't really explain it either, and they couldn't explain it. It's just a very fathoming situation of what happened. Explanations, NFL officiating has a Twitter page. They did not explain it, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. There was some pass interference calls that should not have been called, like that were too early, or there lack thereof of pass interference calls that should have been called but weren't. The referees put their hand too much on the game. Now, did the game play out and it necessarily matter? No, because at the end of the game it was 20-20 and Kansas City won on a field goal with 8 seconds left. Now, but the point, Joseph Asai, the linebacker for the Bengals, had a stellar game until the last moment. He was getting pressure left and right on Patrick Mahomes, but when Mahomes ran for a first down, all he had to do was get out of bounds. And Joseph Asai should have known that if he did not. He was clearly going out of bounds. But when you take a second step out of bounds and then you get hit, you deserve what's coming for you. A late hit out of bounds, personal foul, and there's your season. Goodbye. One of the best kickers in the league with Butker. Of course he's going to make a barely over a 40-yard kick. If Mahomes got out of bounds, which he did, and he was not touched and there was no flag, it would have been close to a 50-yard field goal. And that kind of cold and wind, a 50-yard field goal is tough, depending on which hash you're on. If you're not center of the field, you got to kick left to right or right to left. There's a lot of factors that go into that. But when you move the ball up 15 yards because of the personal foul, clearly the kick is easier. And he made it, went right through, and Bengals season was over. Joseph Ossai was seen crying on the bench afterwards, and rightfully so, because he made a stupid mistake. Bonehead mistake, and if you're Mike Vrabel, if he was the coach, you can't do stupid stuff to get your team, penalized, make your team lose. And that's exactly what Joseph Ossai did. But, what's cool about it is B.J. Hill, one of the defensive linemen after the game, stood up right by his side and said that we're not answering questions with that. They supported him, and that's what good teammates do. That's what great teammates do, and that was really cool to see. But nonetheless, Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl. Next week we'll be talking more into that in the matchups and predictions and all that good stuff. So there's kind of the talk about the championships. So let's talk about who is retiring. It came out this morning that Tom Brady, none other than Tom Brady, the GOAT of NFL QBs, has declared that he is retiring. Now, this time what is different is last year he said he was kind of undecided, or he didn't quite know what he wanted to do. He took some time to ponder it, but it only took him 40 days to decide that he did not want to retire anymore. So, I think he really messed up last season with the process. If you remember back, there was the whole scandal with Miami Dolphins and Sean Payton, and Miami got in trouble there. And I think that really screwed him up. And, that's what started the whole process of a bad offseason. And then, of course, you had his decision to come back to football, which didn't sit well with his wife, Giselle. And they ended up getting divorced. Now, that's not my business other than the football aspect of it. And so I'm not going to, put my opinion on if that's exactly what caused it, because I don't know. And it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they got a divorce. He had a off season for Tom Brady, a good season for a normal quarterback, but an off season for Tom Brady. And, I think he just had enough of it. He wants to be closer to family now, and I think he just ultimately is deciding that family is more important, which maybe it's a season too late, but his decision nonetheless. So the GOAT, Tom Brady, has decided to retire. And what a stellar career that was. He leads a lot of NFL categories with that, and definitely, obviously, one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. He had, 7 Super Bowl rings, and, can it ever be done again? I'm not necessarily sure. He just is that kind of player that elevates everybody around him, and was a good player. And, enough said about that. So Tom Brady retires. If you haven't heard about that, that happened this morning. So, all right, now we'll get into some Titans news. So we got some news yesterday that the Titans will be transitioning their grass field into a synthetic, I think it's like a synthetic organic turf. So I don't exactly remember the full name on it. It's kind of technical. But it is more of a synthetic and organic turf that is supposed to very kind of mimic regular playing field and have good conditions to it. Obviously, if the Titans have one of the worst fields in the league, because when it becomes late October and November, that field starts turning brown. They can't get it quite green. They can't quite get it to grow right. But also, they wear that field out to death. Nashville SC used to play on it. You have concerts on there. You have Music City Bowls you play on there. TSU plays there from time to time. That field gets worn out, and it has to change so much. Now, this is hopefully going to save the Titans some money on that, and less management as well. They also play on that. That's their practice field surface and their bubble at St. Thomas Sports Park. And so we'll see how that goes. A lot of players don't like the field turf because of injuries, but the Titans are specifically citing the reports of injuries between themselves and the teams that come in here and the injuries that happen on their field. Because they have so much going on, or the weather concerns. Late in the season, they try to resod it, and it becomes very slippery and very unstable, and a lot of players slip and get injuries and stuff like that, and it creates injuries. So Titans have done that. There's the dogs saying hello, everybody. And So yeah, Titans have done that. Now, for the offensive coordinators, that is still yet to be determined. There is no really big news on what's going to happen with the offensive coordinator. Obviously, Rand Carthon is the new general manager. So what is he going to do there? there's a lot of options there. There's been talk about Eric Bieniemy. There's been talk about Matt Nagy from both from the Chiefs. There's other ones, in-house guys such as Tim Kelly. Obviously Todd Downing's gone, and there's some other ones. There's some Charles London was interviewed here, but I don't think that's gonna come to fruition with him. He's the quarterbacks coach at Atlanta, and we talked about this last week. What has he really done? Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and old Matt Ryan was there, and so what has he really done to cause for that kind of promotion? I have heard through radio, through Twitter, that maybe they'll hire Charles London in Tim Kelly's role of passing game coordinator, and that is only if Tim Kelly becomes a coordinator. But I've heard some things about Matt Nagy through the grapevine that, once the Super Bowl is over, maybe that the Titans are waiting for him to finish the Super Bowl, focus on that, and then he will become the Titans offensive coordinator. Now, is that a good idea? What happened when he went to Chicago as the head coach? Not great. What happened when he was with the Chiefs? I think the league learned its lesson with Chiefs offensive coordinators because the offense runs through Andy Reid. That is Andy Reid's offense. That is his players. It is his decisions on how to run that offense. I think that's a big reason why Eric Bieniemy has not found a head coaching gig, because ultimately he's not the one that runs that offense. So what does he really do? He just helps to coordinate things, and that's it. The other thing is, if he comes to a team like the Titans, or if he goes somewhere else and becomes offensive coordinator and he still has success, I think then that will cause him or Nagy, that league recognition that maybe they're longing for. Now, the other thing is the Titans offensive coordinator position attractive? What is your opinion? In my opinion, the offensive coordinator position is not very attractive. Look at last season. Todd Downing ran them into a 32nd in the league hole. Offense sucks. Offensive line was bad. Receivers couldn't stay healthy. Receivers couldn't get open. Tannehill couldn't do much because of the offensive line. Didn't look great. The only good thing about that offense was at times you had Chig Okonkwo who showed up. You had at times in the middle of the season, somewhat towards the end, you had Austin Hooper show up. So your tight ends are okay, and your running back's great. That's it. Okay? But if Rand Carthon can upgrade the offense, not subtract, if they can upgrade the offense, get a decent offensive line, get some receivers, I think Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry can have a really good season. I think that is what can be attractive. But Rand Carthon's going to have to sell the Titans. Until then, the coordinator position, and really a coaching position in general for the Titans, is not very attractive. There's just not a lot to look forward to because there's nothing special. They don't have a quarterback there that's like a Mahomes, like a Burrow, like an Allen, or even Trevor Lawrence, if you want to say that, or a Justin Herbert. So it's just not attractive enough. But still, it's a position in the NFL that's highly regarded. And if you can do something with the Titans, look at Arthur Smith. 2 years had brought the Titans to the number 2 offense in the league. What happened? He got a head coaching job. If people can show success with the Titans, that's where they get promotions. That's where this becomes an attractive position. Todd Downing was just a lull in the vine there, and should not have happened, but yet it did. So if you look at offensive coordinator positions, the Tennessean today, I think it was, no, I'm sorry, not today, a week ago, brought out some offensive coordinator positions that the Titans could consider, such as Bills quarterbacks Joe Brady. He was the offensive coordinator in Carolina, did not do very good, was fired, became the quarterbacks coach for Josh Allen, and the Bills offense there has done good. Obviously, look, Josh Allen is the quarterback there, so there's not much to do to coach other than just to keep improvement, and Josh Allen is kind of tampered off there. Next is Alabama offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, but it came out just earlier this week that end of last week, I think it was, Bill O'Brien is returning to New England Patriots and going back to Bill Belichick, where he got to start. Then you got Patriots tight ends coach Nick Caley. I think we need to get away from the tight ends coach. Arthur Smith was the tight end coach. It worked out. Todd Downing became the Titans tight end coach before his when Arthur Smith was the coach or the offensive coordinator, and obviously it didn't work out. So get away from the tight ends coach. I don't know who Nick Caley is, but look, the tight ends in New England is Hunter Henry, who's getting older. And then you have Jonnu Smith, former Titan. They did not do very good. Also, so get away from the tight ends coach. Then you go there. They're mentioning Ohio State passing game coordinator Brian Hartline. I've heard a lot about Brian Hartline. If you look at the Ohio State offense, and they've been really good. They've been one of the best offenses in the college football NCAA for a while, and I think he's done a good job there. But making the transition from college to professional in a very similar role can be very challenging. Some head coaches don't do a good job. Nick Saban didn't even do a good job when he went from college to professional. Philadelphia Eagles quarterbacks coach Brian Johnson. Okay, I would have said more of their offensive coordinator. I don't remember what his name is, but the Philadelphia offense goes through Nick Sirianni. So their coordinator job, I'm gonna have to look up his name here soon, but the coordinator job for Philadelphia, he's kind of similar to what the Chiefs are. It's ran by the head coach, and there's left to be desired there. So making a lateral move to the Titans, for instance, like Bieniemy, is not really lateral because then you become the play caller, and I think that's an upgrade. So there's some interesting candidates there. If it was me, I'm not quite sure who to go with. There's a lot of good options out there. I've heard stuff about Pep Hamilton. There's things to look forward to. There was rumors about Kellen Moore, who was fired by the Cowboys earlier this week, but less than 24 hours he was hired as the same role with the Chargers and developing Justin Herbert there. If it was me, I would probably be looking most at Matt Nagy, going from quarterbacks coach to coordinator job. It's either him or Tim Kelly. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think it's one of those teams is going to be the offensive coordinator, but we'll see. They're not in a rush like they were with the general manager. They've got some time, and I think it's going to be crucial. But if they wait until after the Super Bowl, I think that maybe might tell you that they're leaning towards Nagy or Bieniemy for that matter. So we will see there. So that's pretty much it for the Titans news. There's not a lot to go from. Obviously, it's the off season. There's not much there. It's really just talking about kind of the day-to-day stuff, like the turf field, going to the offensive coordinator search, and we'll be talking about draft prospects coming up soon. The draft's in April, and we'll be going through that as well. So that's pretty much it for Titans news. Now we move into the Predators news, and there's not much there either because they are into the All-Star break, but they ended going into the break with a 3-game win streak. And if those who did not watch the Devils and Predators game last Thursday, it was one to watch. They played very well. There was an up and down game. It was 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, but then it was all Predators as Duchesne and then Forsberg scored, and then Devils tried to come back, but Tanner Jeannot put it away for the empty netter. And so it was a good game. And, the Predators hopefully can take that into the All-Star break. They don't play again until next Tuesday, and they'll play the Vegas Golden Knights, where they lost in overtime in Vegas. So, I've said this plenty of times. Last week it was, is it good enough? I still don't think it's good enough based on what they're doing because their on-ice performance is not great. They're not consistent. They'll win 3, lose 3, win 3, lose 5, or win 5, lose 2, 3, 4, whatever. So they're not very consistent. Now, like I said, for me, it was the week before Christmas was my judgment day. I stand by that judgment day, but obviously, David Poile, Sean Henry, John Hines, their judgment day may never come. David Poile has been the longest tenured GM probably in history. He has the most wins in history. So he's done a lot for this team, and I think that warrants him to have some sort of, long lanyard that he can just climb up on and take his time. If they're doing bad, okay, well he'll right the wrongs. He's done it before. But look, he's been the GM for their 25 or almost 25-year history, and he's not won a Stanley Cup. He's been in it once, but he's been a GM for the Capitals and he's been a GM for the Predators. Never won a Stanley Cup. How many general managers can you say has been a GM for at least 40 years and never won a Stanley Cup or a championship for matter? It doesn't matter if it's football, baseball, whatever. Not many. There is not many. And as far as when you top the league in wins for general manager history in the NHL, you would think you would have a Stanley Cup, and he does not. And I think that you should really look yourself in the mirror and understand that maybe what you're doing is not the right way to do it. The chemistry is not fully great. Like I said, John Hines changes the lines all the time. Your on-ice performance by your star players, Forsberg, Duchesne, Yossi, they're up and down. Obviously, you have all-star goaltender and UC Saros, who's going to play in the all-star weekend this weekend. They're just not good enough. I don't know what else I can really say about it. Now, it's nice to see them win. It's nice to see them play good teams like the Devils, who are one of the league's top teams. Unfortunately for them, they play in the East, which has Boston going on a freaking rampage. And then, they're third. I think they're third in the East. The Predators are somewhere along the lines of 8th in the West. Or 9th in the West. They're out of a playoff spot currently. They're a couple points out, which is good for them, but bad for them. It basically tells you what kind of season they have. They're on the outside looking in, and that's where they've been all season. And I don't see them getting into the playoffs. Look, if they miss the playoffs, it'd be the first time in 8 or 9 years that they've missed the playoffs. And if they do that, I think that's what's going to have to tell you, okay, maybe we're not doing something right. Maybe you're going to have to get rid of some contracts. Maybe you're going to have to pay some people out to get rid of those contracts, like trading a Matt Duchesne and eating some of his salary to get a first, second round pick out of him. So that way you can get rid of him and get some prospects back. I think that's the only way that you improve. Now, according to Improvement and according to NHL.com and the analysts and the prospect pools of 2023, Predators rank actually number 10. With Philip Tomasino as number 1, I think you can still consider Juuso Parssinen as a prospect, and he quickly rose to the ranks as he now is an everyday NHLer. But there's some good players. You obviously have Yaroslav Askarov, who was the 2020 first-round draft pick. I think, what was that, number 10, number 11? Which was a very questionable pick at the time because you had Pekka Rinne, then you had UC Saros. And it was just, UC Saros is a future, so what are you really doing? But really, you're planning for that future, or maybe him being the backup, kind of like being a Pekka Rinne and Saros kind of duo there, where Saros was the backup. He'll overthrow him eventually. I think that's what Askarov is going to be for them. He did get in one game this season, a couple weeks ago, in which he lost. But, I think his style of play is very aggressive, which you're either going to get behind or you're not going to get behind. And I think the way that he plays, very aggressive, trying to use the stick, trying to be fancy, trying to be cute. I think he will learn that in the NHL you can't quite do that all the time, but he can make it his. Coming out of the draft, if you remember, he was compared to Carey Price, one of the best goaltenders to ever do it. And the dog's going nuts back there. Who even knows what he's doing? Like, yep, there he goes. Yep, say hi, Cooper. Hello. So, anyways, look, Carey Price, one of the best goaltenders to ever do it, and to be compared to him, or who's the other one? Played for Ottawa, New Jersey. Martin Brodeur. I don't think he played for Ottawa actually, but Martin Brodeur, one of the best goaltenders to ever do it. And you get compared to one or both of those, I mean, he's got the size, he's got the frame, he's got a lot of skills, he does. But like I said, he plays aggressive. I think he will tone those down. He made the All-Star game for AHL, which is crazy. He is 2 years removed from the draft, coming into the third year, and he's played very well. He's played overseas in Russia for the KHL, he's played for their second league up there. And he's done very well in everything that he's played in. So, I think he will find his success in the NHL because, like I said, he's got the size and the frame to do it. You just got to tone it down into the NHL a little bit more. So I think the Predators have good prospects. I think they have a good future, but they just need a little bit extra pieces to get there. And I think the extra pieces to get there is to get rid of some of those players under high contracts, like a Duchesne or a Johansson, to get something out of there, kind of rebuild a little bit for the future, and just try to move on. I think the Predators and Titans are very similar. Okay, they're not bad, but they're not great. They're somewhere around the middle of the pack and can be good, like the Titans last year were number 1 seed in the AFC when they finished the year. The Predators a couple years ago were number 1 seed in the West. Okay, I think they're always hovering around this middle line, and they can sometimes be up here, and they can sometimes be just under. Like the Titans missed the playoffs this year, and the Preds might miss the playoffs this year. But maybe next year they get that retool just a bit, and then they're coming up a little bit. I think that's they're both the same. And several weeks ago I compared them to Tennessee weather, where you're up one day, you're down the next day, and you just never know. And that's exactly what they are. So, it's interesting to watch this Predators team, knowing that they can be good, but they're just not playing to their caliber. Like, how can Tanner Jeannot have the most or second most goals as a rookie last year, and this year only have 4? It doesn't make a lot of sense. What happened? How did you tail off? Is that really who Tanner Jeannot is? Did he just have a breakout year, and really he's just a 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 goal a year guy? He's very physical. He's obviously got some skills and can do stuff with the puck, but it's the tail off from last year is evident, and it's not good. Obviously, the Predators lack in offense this season, so maybe it's the coaches. You have Dan Lambert as one of the coaches. You have Dan Hinote as one of the coaches. The power play is not all that great. The offense obviously is not that great. You're not winning many games because you can't score much. If you get behind early, they're clearly not good enough to get back into it. So, like I said, Titans and Predators are very similar. You get down early, you can't come back. So you got to get up and stay up, and that's how it is. So Predators, and they get back from the All-Star break. We're really going to understand who this Predators team are, or who they are. So they play Vegas at home. Last time they lost to Vegas in overtime, so they have 2 more matchups against Vegas. So we'll see. Vegas has quickly become a little bit of a rivalry for them. Very tough, very physical. Vegas has slowed up just a touch this season compared to seasons past. If they play the way they did last Thursday against the Devils, they can win this game. They can win a lot of games if they play that way. But I don't think the way they play is sustainable. They play fast and physical, and then I think they get tired. I think John Hines he's a good coach. I don't think he's a terrible coach. I just think he maybe expects too much. I think he asks them to go way above and beyond their physicality. I need you to go balls to the wall all the time. Well, in reality, not all players can do that. It doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, how skilled you are, how good of a defender you are. When you go balls to the wall all the time, you get tired, you get sore, your muscles ache, you get these soft tissue injuries, you get hurt, or you can't keep up. And I think that's what's happening. So I don't think he's a bad coach. I just don't think he's good enough, and I don't think he's right for this system. So, like I said, if the Predators don't make the playoffs this year, I think John Hines' hot seat will get very hot and potentially let go after this season. So we'll see what happens. But next week is the Predators and Golden Knights game, and we will have more on that next week. Like I said, Nashville SC then, they just started up. Louisville SC, they tied when they played Louisville SC, so they played their starting lineup, but they didn't play very long, had a lot of subs, just getting kind of they're back in the feel of things. So we'll get more on them as the season begins next month. And so we'll go from there. If you have any questions, please follow along. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Nashville Native is the name. Justin Hawkins is the host. I'm here all the time. Nashville sports content coming your way every week. All right, hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know what you think. Follow along, subscribe, do what you got to do to follow your Nashville sports content. I'm Justin Hawkins. I'll see you next time on the Nashville Native.